You ever notice how some people will spend 30 minutes sitting in traffic, gripping a steering wheel like it personally insulted their ancestors, while another person will happily ride a bicycle through the same city with a weird kind of peace on their face? Same roads, same weather, same human species, completely different emotional universe. And if you're one of those people who prefer bicycles over cars, you've probably heard it all. Why would you do that when you could just drive? Isn't that inconvenient? What if it rains? What if you get tired? As if mild discomfort is a tragic event and not just life wearing sneakers. Most people assume that choosing a bicycle over a car is mainly about fitness, money, or convenience. And yes, sometimes it is. But psychologically, it often goes much deeper than that. Because for many people, choosing a bicycle is not just a transportation choice. It's an identity choice, a nervous system choice, a freedom choice, sometimes even a philosophical choice. So what is really going on in the mind of someone who would rather ride than drive? Let me show you. Picture 2 mornings. In the first one, someone gets into a car. Door shuts. Engine starts. The windshield becomes a frame between them and the world. They move, but they are enclosed. Protected, yes. Comfortable, maybe. But also separated. They are inside a machine, moving through life like they're in a metal bubble. In the second morning, someone gets on a bicycle. Immediately, the experience is different. Their body is involved. Their balance matters. Their breathing matters. The air matters. The road matters. Their attention wakes up. They're not just moving through the environment. They're in it. And that difference matters more than people realize. Psychologically, many people who prefer bicycles over cars are drawn to a feeling that modern life often strips away: direct experience. Cars are efficient, but bicycles are intimate. A car can get you somewhere faster. A bicycle makes you feel the distance. It turns movement back into something human-sized. Not abstract. Not automatic. Felt. And for a lot of people, that's exactly the point. We live in a world that constantly tries to buffer us from reality. Climate control. Tinted glass. Algorithmic convenience. One-click everything. Life has become so frictionless in some ways that people are quietly starving for experiences that still feel real. That still involve effort, presence, and contact. Riding a bicycle gives you that. You feel hills. You feel wind. You feel momentum. You feel your own body earning the movement. There's something deeply satisfying about that because your brain is not just being transported. It is participating. That participation is psychologically powerful. Research in psychology and neuroscience has long suggested that the brain responds differently when the body is actively engaged. Movement changes mood. Rhythmic motion can regulate stress. Repetitive physical activity often helps reduce mental clutter. This is one reason people say things like, "I think more clearly on a bike," or "I calm down when I ride." It's not just poetic. It's embodied cognition. The body and mind are not separate roommates who barely talk. They are more like business partners trapped in the same office. When one changes, the other notices. That's why some people don't just like bicycles. They need them. For some, cycling becomes a kind of emotional reset button. Not because life magically gets easier on 2 wheels, but because their mind finally gets a healthier rhythm. Think about how many thoughts a human being carries in a day. Worries, obligations, unfinished conversations, future scenarios, weird memories from 2014 that show up uninvited. The mind can become like a browser with 40 tabs open and one of them is playing music, but you can't find which one. A bicycle ride has a strange way of closing some of those tabs. Not through force. Through focus. Because when you ride, your attention organizes itself. Road. Balance. Breathing. Corners. Speed. Body. Environment. You become present because you have to. And presence is a relief for people whose minds are usually overcrowded. That's one big reason many cyclists seem calmer than people expect. It's not always because they were born chill. Sometimes it's because they found one of the few activities that gives their nervous system a break from endless mental noise. But there's another layer too. A lot of people who prefer bicycles over cars have a complicated relationship with control. Not control in the arrogant, bossy way. More like a quiet desire to feel connected to what they're doing. Cars, for all their usefulness, can create a strange psychological distance. Push a pedal, the machine does the work. Sit still, the world slides by. Bicycle riders often want something more direct. More honest. If they move because they are moving. No engine translating their intention into action. No giant shell between them and the consequence of their choices. There's a weird purity in that. It's the difference between heating food in a microwave and cooking it yourself. Both can work. One just feels more personal. And people who are drawn to bicycles are often drawn to that kind of personal relationship with effort. They tend to value simplicity, but not laziness. Freedom, but not numb comfort. They often like the idea that life should cost you something small in order to feel meaningful. A little sweat. A little patience. A little weather. Not suffering. Just contact. This is why bicycles often attract people who think differently about status too. Cars, in many cultures, are deeply tied to image. What you drive can become a public message about success, class, taste, masculinity, maturity, or power. A bicycle can carry identity too, of course, but often in a different way. It tends to attract people who either care less about traditional status signals or actively reject them. Not always, but often. The person who chooses a bicycle over a car may be saying something without saying it out loud. Maybe they value freedom over display, function over impression, experience over appearance. Or maybe they're just tired of the whole social theater of, "Look how successful I am." A bicycle can feel refreshingly honest. It doesn't pretend to be more than it is. And for certain personalities, that honesty is psychologically attractive. There's also a strong independent streak in many people who prefer bicycles. Not the loud, dramatic kind. More the quiet, self-contained kind. The kind that says, "I want to rely on something simpler." A bicycle asks more from you, yes, but it also frees you from a lot. Fuel prices. Parking stress. Traffic paralysis. Mechanical over-complexity. Social expectation. It strips transportation down to something elegant and elemental. Human body, 2 wheels, direction. That simplicity can feel deeply empowering. And when something feels empowering, people get attached to it emotionally. That's why bicycles are rarely just objects. For many people, they become part memory, part ritual, part symbol. The first bike you rode alone. The bike that carried you through a hard season. The one you fixed with your own hands. The one you took on early morning rides when your mind felt too heavy to sit still. A bicycle can become woven into a person's emotional biography in a way that surprises people who see it as just transport. It's not just transport. It's a witness. And for some people, it's a private kind of therapy. Not therapy in the clinical sense. More in the, "this is one of the few places I can hear myself think without drowning in myself" sense. Solitude on a bicycle feels different from solitude in a room. In a room, your thoughts can trap you. On a bike, your thoughts move with you. They loosen. They stretch out. They stop piling on top of each other. Problems that feel huge at a desk can feel strangely manageable on a road, trail, or quiet street. Something about forward motion gives the brain a metaphor it can actually use. We are moving. We are not stuck. We are going somewhere. That matters to the human mind more than we admit. And if you've ever wondered why some people would rather ride alone for hours than sit in comfortable silence in a car, this is part of the answer. Cars are good at removing effort. Bicycles are good at restoring meaning to it. Now, of course, not everyone who prefers bicycles is some poetic minimalist philosopher riding into the sunrise with perfect emotional balance. Some are just practical. Some hate traffic. Some want exercise. Some like gear. Some love the mechanics. Some enjoy the subculture. Some just genuinely hate being trapped in a metal box with bad drivers and worse playlists. Human beings are never one reason. We are a pile of reasons wearing shoes. But even then, patterns emerge. People who strongly prefer bicycles often have at least one of these deeper psychological themes running in the background. A need for freedom, a desire for authenticity, an attraction to simplicity, a more embodied relationship with life, or a nervous system that feels better when movement and attention are linked. And honestly, that's not a weakness. If anything, it may be a clue. Because in a world that keeps trying to turn human beings into passengers in their own lives, the person who chooses a bicycle may be choosing something more than transport. They may be choosing participation, presence, agency. They may be saying, in the quietest possible way, I don't just want to arrive. I want to feel myself getting there. That's beautiful, even if it doesn't always look glamorous. And maybe that's the deeper psychology here. People who prefer bicycles over cars often aren't just rejecting one machine for another. They're rejecting a way of living that feels too detached, too padded, too passive. They are choosing a form of movement that keeps them awake to the world and to themselves. So if you're one of those people, if a bicycle makes you feel calmer, freer, clearer, more honest, more alive, maybe you're not just someone with an unusual preference. Maybe your brain has recognized something important before you could fully explain it. Maybe part of you knows that not all convenience is nourishing, and not all effort is bad. Maybe some effort is exactly what makes life feel real again. And if you're not that person, but you know someone who is, maybe now they make a little more sense. Maybe they're not doing life the hard way. Maybe they just discovered a way of moving through the world that matches their inner wiring better than a car ever could. Because psychology is often like that. What looks strange from the outside can be deeply coherent from the inside. If this connected with you, think about what bicycles mean in your own life. Are they freedom, escape, simplicity, identity, peace? There's usually a deeper story there. And sometimes understanding that story tells you something much bigger about the kind of person you are becoming. If you want, share your thoughts. I'd be curious what writing means to you.